Hey everybody, this is Kohdok here. Is it just me, or does it seem like Bushiroad's coming out with a new card game every month or so? I mean, if you go and look at their website, you can see that they have a long list of trading card games they've made. Of course, there's Card Buddyfight, Vanguard, Weiss Schwartz, and now there's this new game that they've come out with. Now, a lot of you guys know that I'm not really a fan of Bushiroad or any of the things that they make, but a lot of you guys asked me to do this, and I figured I'd give it a chance. So we're going to be going over Bushiroad's new game, Future Card Buddyfight? In the Buddyfight universe, certain rare cards found in booster packs can cause a monster from another dimension to arrive on Earth and become buddies with the person who pulled them. Hear that, kids? Buy lots and lots of booster packs and you too can get your very own brand new best friend! They're not even subtle about it, they say it at the end of every episode.
Can you open a Buddy Rare card? What do you think?
The basic idea behind Buddyfight is that it's meant to be a lot more kid-friendly than Card Buddyfight Vanguard, both in show content and the game's content, as some of the images from the Vanguard cards can push the limits of good taste at times. It's got a younger protagonist, it's got the monster friends, it's got the spectacle, but doesn't hold up as a show. The story centers around a kid named Gao Mikado who one day pulls one of these Buddy Rare cards, a young armor dragon named Drum. Together, they fight crime. I mean, play card games. And that's about it. Really, most of the show's episodes are about Gao or one of his friends playing somebody in a card game. Like the early episodes of Vanguard, there are no stakes to these matches at all. Some of the episodes' main plots are literally, do I want to use this card or not? It doesn't help that the dialogue is really cheesy. I crack up every time they say the word buddy.
Buddies, buddy, buddies, buddy,
Buddy, buddy.
buddy, buddy, buddy,
Buddy, buddy.
buddy.
And the battle cry they make is unfortunately the same as the slogan for a line of restaurants around here.
Time to raise the flag!
We're ready for a little more Pancho's Mexican buffet! Gao and Drum are also exceptionally shallow characters. I mean, the two have constant conflict and they're always arguing about something. Or nothing. And I don't mean like about trivial things, I mean they argue for no real reason.
I'm counting on you, partner. Let's win this.
What do you mean, partner? I don't want to be your buddy anymore.
It feels really artificial, like it was some harebrained idea that some executives came up with out of nowhere. I'm liking this buddy fight idea a whole lot, but it needs some kind of twist, some kind of panache in order to truly make it successful. Any ideas? I've got it. How about they're buddies, but they're not buddies? That's funny, right? Right? So yeah, that's about it. I mean, there's no stakes, and the plots are about as deep as a sheet of tracing paper. It doesn't help that they use the exact same jokes over and over again.
At least I don't have a kitten on my shirt. It's kitten shirt, kitten shirt, kitten shirt.
For the last time, this happens to be a tiger!
The characters also range from uninteresting to completely annoying.
Yo, yo, yo.
No.
Yep. Oh, well, I mean, there is this guy named Tasuku Ryoenji. Tasuku and his buddy monster Jackknife Dragon actually do fight crime. The two of them work for an organization called the Buddy Police, who are in charge of not only regulating buddy monsters and fighters, but also for rounding up buddy fighters who use their buddy monsters to commit crimes. Things heat up for the Buddy Police when a powerful criminal buddy fighter under the name of Wolf appears. Now, normally cards used in buddy fights only materialize about halfway and deliver more than a light shock to their victims. However, Wolf's Dark Force and Tasuku's own experimental Future Force are capable of bringing out the full impact of these cards, making them real. You know what this is? It's exciting! It's action-packed! It's way more interesting than what's going on in the rest of the show! Episode 5 is completely dedicated to the work of the Buddy Police and is easily the best episode of the series. The entire series should be about this! This episode 5 should have been episode 1! What happened? Did like 2 show pitches get mashed together, but the people decided that all this interesting Buddy Cop Police Future Force stuff should have been pushed aside for more card games?
Raise the flag!
What? I've suddenly had this hankering for Mexican food. Seriously, despite how interesting it is, the Buddy Police arc is little more than a side story that's been pushed aside in favor of some lame corrupt student council story. There are tons of better corrupt student council shows I could be watching right now. It doesn't help that, aside from the cheesy terms they use like buddy and raise the flag, they also mess up the terminology of other things, like with octopus dumplings and pudding.
Octopus dumplings? Pudding? I mean, I know it's not as bad as like Pokemon and donuts and rice balls, but what's wrong with calling these foods the names they really are? I mean, kids these days have Google to look it up. It's educational. Why not call them by their real names? Takoyaki and flan. I'm talking about Mexican food again.
But by far the worst part of the show is that the characters are just boring. Gao is a Mary Sue. Tasuku is a Mary Sue. There's even a character whose name is Mary Sue. Gao doesn't worry about whether he will win or lose, he worries that he will win by too great a margin. That is a Mary Sue problem. Remember Wolf from episode 5? In episode 6, Gao takes him down in a single turn and causes him to not only drop out of school completely, but to never appear in the cartoon again. No! Come back, interesting plot! You're the only thing this series had going for it!
This is what this show does to me.
Bushiroad, making exciting things boring since I don't care to find out when.
So yeah, the TV show is kind of a letdown. I mean, let's face it, that's par for the course for Bushiroad at this point. I mean, it might get interesting like 100 episodes in like Vanguard did, but by then I will be so done watching it. Which begs the question, is the card game just as bad as the TV show? Well, let's take a look.
First of all, the rulebook is actually a separate book. I don't know why so many card games these days print the rules on the back of the playmat. What if you have to look up the rules in the middle of the game? The goal is fairly simple. You want to reduce your opponent's life points from 10 to 0 by attacking them directly. You have a flag card, which determines which world you play for, and a deck of at least 50 cards, with no more than 4 copies of any single card. In front of your flag are 3 zones into which you can play monsters. Your monsters can attack your opponent from any of these zones, but only monsters in your center zone can protect you from attacks. The limitation on monsters is the size stat. You can only have monsters whose size stats add up to 3 or less in play at any one time, meaning you can have up to 3 size 1 monsters, 1 size 1 and 1 size 2 monster, or 1 size 3 monster in play at a time. Larger monsters tend to be more powerful, but smaller monsters can perform what is called a link attack, letting them team up to take down the bigger monsters. There are also item cards, which you can equip to your flag. Item cards are interesting in that while you can attack and deal damage with them, they also do not count towards your 3-point size limit, making them sort of like a free monster. However, you can only attack with an item card if your center zone is empty, trading defense for offense, which is actually a pretty bold mechanic, as it takes a card effect or special ability to be able to move a monster into the center zone after you attack. Spell cards are pretty straightforward. You play them and perform their effects. Some stay in play after you cast them, while others can only be used at certain times. Many of them merely need to be in your hand in order to be able to play them. And finally, there's impact cards. These sideways cards are played during the final phase, which is basically the end of your turn. They behave like super attacks or finishing moves and are usually played to end the game. There's also the gauge zone. Once per turn, after you draw, you can charge and draw, dropping a card from your hand into the gauge in order to draw a new card. Cards in the gauge act as currency for playing more powerful cards, so it is important for one to make sure that they don't let their gauge fall too low if they are trying to cast an impact card, which usually costs between 2 and 4 gauge. Now keep in mind, I've only kind of gone over the barest elements of this game. There's a lot of interesting twists and turns with the monster abilities and the spell cards as well. The size and gauge dynamics are actually pretty interesting, which begs the question, what about a buddy card? Before the game starts, you pick a buddy card in your deck and set an extra copy of that card aside as your buddy.
When you play a monster from your hand that's the same as your buddy monster, you can tap that buddy monster and gain 1 life point. Once. The entire game. That's it. 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 Oh, that is it. That's 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 it.
That's it.
That's it.
What's it?
That's it. Just give me a pack of set 2.
No, I mean it, that's it. It's not once each time you play the monster. It's not once each turn you play the monster with that name. It's just once. I mean, there is some support for buddy monsters out there, but nothing to really justify the mechanic, since most of the time it gets you maybe 1 life point per game. There's no bonus to the monster for getting buddy called, there's no field effect depending on which buddy you choose, there's little reason to pick anything in your deck other than the easiest monster to play as your buddy monster.
I mean, I know it's a small thing, but it's the element of the game that they decided to name it after, which unfortunately has the additional side effect of giving it an incredibly stupid sounding name. I mean, with games like Vanguard, the Vanguard is like the most important thing, so that makes a lot of sense. In this case, it's just... ugh.
And a lot of buddies in the show have some sort of casting cost. So in this case, your buddy isn't really like a faithful companion you can call on at any time. It's more like,
"Hey buddy, I brought you something to drink. It's half empty though. Can I borrow some money?"
the impacts have a similar problem. While they're these big climactic moments in the show, I find that using them in the actual game actually makes it feel anticlimactic.
Doesn't matter, I win. Okay.
It feels like the buddy and impact elements were added to the game in service of the show, and they're sort of a fitting metaphor for the whole thing, shoving aside the interesting parts while giving the boring, less inspired parts all the spotlight.
Buddyfight also suffers from what I call the Bushiroad problem, in which certain archetypes get a whole ton of support while other archetypes are just completely left out in the cold. I know this is true with Vanguard and Weiss Schwartz, and it's just as true with Buddyfight, particularly with Armor Dragons.
So far there are 4 regions to the card game, and something that's notable is that each one actually gets their own different layout. Dragon World, Danger World, Magic World, and Katana World. Magic World has gotten 0 starter decks, Katana World has gotten 0 starter decks, Danger World has gotten 1 starter deck, and Dragon World? Armor Dragons, not just Dragon World in general, but Armor Dragons specifically, have gotten 2 starter decks and a supporting character pack, as well as most of the current promo cards.
But wait, it gets worse! In order to be able to play any of these cards that you paid for, you have to have the matching flag. And if the card doesn't have a starter deck, that means you have to pull out of the booster packs. But guess what? There is 1 flag per booster box. That's right, you have to buy like 20-something packs to get just 1 of these flags because it's the promo that gets stuffed into the booster box. That's just ridiculous. Isn't that kind of unfair to prevent you from using the cards you've paid for unless you have that matching flag? As if it's bad enough that the buddy rule makes it so that you have to buy enough packs to get 5 copies of that rare card instead of just 4.
The game is also incredibly short, with many games being over in less than 3 turns. There is some deck control, but it is incredibly unwieldy. Tasuku's body monster Jackknife Dragon has a bit of an archetype around him, surrounding a bunch of transformations that it can pull from the deck, but the gauge cost needed to do so ranges from 2 gauge if you're lucky and have all the cards needed in your hand, to an astounding 5 if you have to use even the most basic support chain. That's more than most impacts, and remember that normally you can only charge 1 gauge per turn.
So with all those flaws and problems, what do I think of future Card Buddyfight? I like it! Yeah, you heard me right, I like it! Sure, the games are short, but they're just as fast-paced. The fact that there isn't really a resource counter means that the game doesn't have to build up steam before things really get going. It's really exciting the way things move, and the item and size cost dynamic for the offense and defense, that's actually really interesting. And charging and drawing gives you 2 chances each turn to make that miracle draw to turn everything around. So the way that the game works, despite how lackluster the buddy aspect and the impacts are, the rest of the game works really well, and I actually enjoy playing it. I actually won my first tournament, although I don't know what it says about the card game when I'm able to sweep an entire tournament with just a slightly tuned up starter deck and little strategy beyond Hulk Smash! I mean, if I tried that in any other card game out there, I would be creamed. So yeah, that's future Card Buddyfight. It has an absolutely terrible cartoon, but the game itself, I actually recommend it. It's actually a really fun game with an interesting dynamic that plays a lot differently from the other card games out there. So I really like the card game. So I'd say go ahead and give it a try if you like it. Until then, this is Kohdok signing off.
Everybody, devote your energy to your dreams. Keep on going towards the future. Let's buddy fight.